guests. While we will still welcome more guests to join, I think we can still begin our session on Desert to Power. My name is Magdalena Azol, and I currently work with the Energy Complex at the African Development Bank, and I will be moderating the session today. So Desert to Power initiative has been established to address the energy access challenges particularly in the Sahel regions. And if you look into the numbers, 64% of the population in the region is living without electricity access to it too, which the number is a bit higher than the numbers for sub-Saharan Africa. So we're facing even harder challenge here. And while we try to find a better solution to solve this, work this problem out, we have invited speakers from various institutions who share the same visions and missions. So I would like to first quickly introduce our speakers and then let each of our panelists also speak about their work and their organization. So immediately right to my side is Mr. Tony Clamp, who is Deputy Director of the Private Sector Facility at the Green Climate Fund. And right to Mr. Tony Clamp is Mr. Mamadou Sambou, who is the National Coordinator of Renewable Energy Program at the Ministry of Energy in Senegal. And right to Mr. Sambou is Ms. Astrid Monroe, who is the Director of Delivery and Impact in Africa Development Bank. And we have Mr. Nagata from IRENA. And we also have Mr. Shishir Seth, who is the Senior Advisor at the International Solar Alliance. So let's first invite our panelists to first introduce themselves and also their work and organizations.
Sure. I'll take this one. Yeah, good afternoon. Very nice to be here. As Magdalena indicated, I am the Deputy Director within the Private Sector Group of the Green Climate Fund. Many of you will be aware of the fund. It's a fund created under the auspices of the UNFCCC, based in Songdo, Korea, and we, in essence, were provided with up to $10 billion equivalent to provide funding on the public and private side to developing countries in projects and programs to support climate change related action. That includes, but is not limited to, renewable energy and solar, and includes mitigation adaptation projects. Just to give you a sense of status and activity, we have so far committed around about $4.6 billion of funding to projects on the public and private side. We do that working with accredited entities. About 40% of that is on the private side, 60% on the public side. In addition, we provide funding to governments and projects on a technical assistance basis. Amongst the 93 projects which have been committed to date include 4 where we worked recently and very successfully with the African Development Bank, in DRC, in Zambia, in Burkina Faso, and in Niger. And we signed a memorandum of understanding in May at the annual meeting of the African Development Bank to work with them on this very important Desert to Power project. Thank you.
Bonjour à tous. Donc je m'appelle Mamadou Sambou. Donc je suis du ministère du Pétrole et des Énergies. Donc actuellement, je suis coordonnateur du programme Énergie durable. Donc c'est un programme qui est financé par la BMZ et mis en œuvre par la GIZ. Donc c'est un programme qui appuie l'État du Sénégal, particulièrement le ministère, dans le cadre de la politique dans le domaine de l'efficacité énergétique, des énergies renouvelables et de l'électrification rurale. Par ailleurs aussi, je suis aussi acteur aussi dans l'élaboration de la CDN du Sénégal en tant que aussi expert énergie. Bon, je suis aussi coordonnateur adjoint du système d'information énergétique. Donc je suis aussi expert en système de planification énergétique. Je vous remercie.
Good afternoon, my name is Astrid Manroth. I'm at the African Development Bank, and as you know, the African Development Bank has given itself the strategic objective to light up and power Africa. That translates into our ambition to achieve universal energy access in Africa by 2025. And I have been working on this from two angles. Last year as Director for Energy Partnerships, we worked on innovative structures to create programmatic solutions to crowd the private sector into energy access financing across the entire spectrum, off-grid, mini-grids, and also small-scale renewable energy IPPs. And this year, as Director for Delivery and Impact, I actually oversee the lending program and the delivery of the bank's lending program on the sovereign side. And in there, the energy sector is taking an important part of the program, where we work with governments to help them put in place state-owned generation capacity and also transmission lines and upgrade their distribution systems where necessary. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Toshiaki Nagata. I work at the International Renewable Energy Agency, or IRENA, based in Abu Dhabi, and we also have offices in Bonn, Germany as well. The IRENA undertakes a wide variety of works relating to renewables, including analysis on policy designs, the analysis on renewable energy capacity, assessment of technologies and cost estimates. It is kind of wide range of analysis work, and based on these analysis, we also undertake region or country-specific work. Some of you might know our initiative called African Clean Energy Corridor, which is a African regional initiative for the enhancement of renewables. And I myself belongs to a team leading the NDC, or climate change work within IRENA. The ultimate goal of my work is to help countries to implement renewable energy components of the NDCs, also help them in further enhancing their renewable energy targets as indicated in the NDCs through the process of revision starting from 2020. And we organized one workshop in cooperation with the Global Green Growth Institute, GGGI, in Burkina Faso, targeting 5 West African countries to help them on their implementation of renewable energy components of NDCs, which was quite successful. And we very much look forward to the lively discussion, which will help us further enhance the cooperation with Saharan countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Shishir Seth. I'm from International Solar Alliance Secretariat, and I work for the partnerships and also assisting the program Affordable Finance at Scale at ISA. ISA is an intergovernmental treaty-based organization registered under Article 102 of the United Nations Charter. The ISA was launched by Mr. Narendra Modi, Honorable Prime Minister of India, and Mr. Hollande, Honorable former President of France, in the presence of Mr. Ban Ki-moon, the former Secretary General of the United Nations, on the 30th November 2015, through adoption of the Paris Declaration on the side events of COP21 at Paris. ISA is headquartered in India. The ISA was launched to be an action-oriented organization which will address energy needs and energy security issues of member countries in a greener and cleaner manner by massive deployment of solar energy at an affordable cost. The ISA members shall take coordinated actions through programs and activities launched on a voluntary basis aimed at better harmonizing and aggregating demand for inter alia solar finance, solar technologies, innovation, research and development and capacity building. The ISA is fully committed to achieve its mandate of massively deploying solar energy and mobilizing more than $1,000 billion investments in the solar sector by 2030. ISA shall be facilitating the mobilization of the required investments through multilateral, bilateral banks and financial institutions. ISA shall also strive to bring all member countries and similar like-minded organizations under its fold to meet this challenge and pave the way for future solar technologies. Currently, 71 countries signed the ISA framework, and as I said, ISA has three major goals: mobilizing $1,000 into the solar sector by 2030, facilitating member countries in developing the bankable solar projects, and also building the capacity building through the I-STAR-C launched by the ISA. ISA also has signed an MOU with the AFDB Bank on this initiative on March 10th, 2017, before the founding day, because founding day is on the 11th, and on this transformative desert to power initiative in the Sahara and Sahel of Africa, which envisages 10 gigawatt solar power generation and providing clean energy to 90 million people. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the introduction. We are expecting to have a variety of expertise in the discussions. So before we move on, I'd like to kind of explain briefly about what this Desert to Power initiative is, and you could refer to the slides in our back for that. So Desert to Power is an initiative that's been established by Africa Development Bank together and in collaboration with Green Climate Fund and Africa 50. And the program is to address the Sahel region's energy challenges, and by establishing two different vehicles, which one is 30 million project development fund, and also the other vehicle is 250 USD million blended finance facility. And we're aiming to develop and deploy 10 gigawatt of solar capacity in the Sahel region. We cover 11 countries by 2025, which is an ambitious goal, but we aim to achieve that goal. And in that 10 gigawatt, 7 gigawatt will be on-grid solar, and the 3 gigawatt will be the off-grid solutions. And if you look into the countries in these regions, we're expecting that the demand for the energy will increase, will nearly double by 2025 in those countries, with the demand driven mostly by the commercial and the industrial uses, and also by the growing middle class in the region. But if you look into the average electricity access rate right now is only 64% of the population is without energy access. And the figures in countries like Chad goes up to 90%, and a country like Niger, which reaches 87% of the population is out of access right now. And these countries also face are the ones that have very high tariffs, which are amongst the highest in the continent, as well as compared to other regions too. And when we try to tackle the issue, this is not a simple technology or a regulation or finance issues. The problems are very complex. As you can see, there are difficulties in raising finance, but at the same time, creates instabilities, the infrastructure, and other regulatory environment, and project preparation facilities, support, and all these things. And this is a very complex and problem. So Desert to Power is trying to rally partnerships so that we could collaborate with diverse organizations aiming for the same goal and working for the same mission. And especially this Desert to Power initiative is trying to bring in the private capital, private sector investors into our work and in solving this issue. And the initial phase will be the 30 million USD project development fund, which really is meant to build concrete pipelines that will attract even larger private capital in the later stage. And during the construction cycle, we are also trying to establish and provide $250 million of blended finance facility. And this approach will be implemented, the implementation arrangement will be through by setting up this special purpose vehicle, which will be maybe half owned by the government and half owned by the private investors. And this will add great value in terms of engaging with the public sector in the early set, and also and also playing a facilitating role in terms of bringing in private sector capital into it. And with all these efforts, we look forward to supporting the emergence of innovative businesses and industries in the region, both on-grid and off-grid side. And having said that, why don't we invite our country delegation from the region to share more about what renewable energy, especially solar, means to the country's strategy, and also the major bottlenecks and challenges that the country faces in terms of expanding solar energy. So, Mr. Sambu.
Merci. C'est vrai que la présentation que je vais faire va comporter deux parties. Une première partie qui va porter sur... Donc la présentation que je vais faire va composer deux parties.
Maybe you could talk to your slides on your screen.
Or he has it.
En première partie, donc je vais parler de la politique dans le domaine des énergies renouvelables, et particulièrement dans le solaire. Et en deuxième partie, là, les défis du solaire dans le cadre de l'accès aux services énergétiques. Donc, il faut savoir, au niveau du Sénégal, donc, on a une carte de référence qui est le PSE, donc, qui a été donc mis en place en 2014. C'est le plan Sénégal émergent avec comme horizon 2035. Donc, qui est un document stratégique à long terme qui traduit l'ambition du pays à garantir un accès large et fiable à une énergie bon marché. Donc, par ailleurs, le ministère du Pétrole et des Énergies donc veille à l'approvisionnement des énergies durables du pays et à l'adéquation des choix technologiques spécifiques aux sources d'énergie solaire, hydraulique et éolien, et s'assure que la valorisation des acquis scientifiques, des acquis scientifiques et technologiques. La vision qui fonde la politique de développement du secteur déclinée dans la lettre de politique et de développement du secteur de l'énergie, LPDSE, à l'horizon 2022, est une énergie de qualité, disponible et accessible à tous et à moindre coût et respectueuse de l'environnement. Cet impact constitue une contribution du secteur à l'atteinte des objectifs d'émergence du pays, clairement déclinés dans le PSE. Maintenant, par rapport à l'accès à l'électricité, en 2017, le taux d'électrification rurale est de 40%, dont 6% dû au solaire photovoltaïque. Donc, dans le milieu urbain, le taux est de 92% et sur le plan national, le taux est de 68%. Maintenant, par rapport au texte législatif et réglementaire, on a pris une loi sur les énergies renouvelables depuis 2010. Donc il y a aussi un décret portant sur les conditions d'achat, de rémunération de l'électricité produite par des centrales à partir des sources d'énergie renouvelables, ainsi que les conditions de leur raccordement au réseau en 2013. Donc un autre décret portant sur les conditions d'achat et de rémunération du surplus d'énergie électrique d'origine renouvelable résultant d'une production par consommation propre en 2014. Et la décision de la Commission de régulation du secteur de l'électricité relative au prix d'achat de l'énergie électrique d'origine énergie renouvelable résultant d'une production pour l'autoconsommation en 2018. Maintenant, par rapport aux structures institutionnelles donc, qui sont chargées de mettre en œuvre la politique dans le domaine des énergies renouvelables, particulièrement dans le solaire, donc on a l'Agence nationale pour le développement des énergies renouvelables, ANER, donc, qui fait la promotion donc, des systèmes individuels solaires au niveau des maisons, de l'autoconsommation au niveau des bâtiments publics. Donc, actuellement, 1900 lampadaires solaires ont été installés et on a un projet qui est finalisé de 50 000 lampadaires solaires. Il y a aussi la promotion de l'usage productif. Donc, il y a aussi la société d'électricité, Sénélec, qui est la société nationale, donc qui a pour mission d'approvisionner le pays en électricité. Donc, les objectifs déclinés au niveau de la lettre de politique de développement du secteur de l'énergie a permis l'arrivée dans le réseau interconnecté de 141 MW de capacité solaire PV, porté par des IPP, et de 213 MW en cours de réalisation. Donc, il y a aussi l'Agence sénégalaise d'électrification rurale, ASER. Maintenant, pour atteindre les objectifs d'électrification rurale, donc, comme vous le savez, le taux est en 2016, il est de 40%. Maintenant, pour atteindre les objectifs d'électrification rurale, donc des concessions d'électrification rurale gérées par des privés ont été mises en place. Dans l'optique d'atteindre le taux universel en 2025, l'État a élaboré en 2015 un programme national d'urgence d'électrification rurale, dont l'objectif est d'atteindre un taux d'électrification de 100% en 2017. Non, c'est plutôt 2019, j'ai fait une erreur, au niveau national, avec un minimum de 30% par département, en vue de l'accès universel 100% à l'horizon 2025. Donc, beaucoup de localités vont être électrifiées par du solaire photovoltaïque. Là aussi, on a aussi, avec la GIZ, donc il y a le programme énergie durable, il y a aussi le programme ENDEV, il y a aussi, avec le PTB, donc de l'Allemagne ici, donc on a aussi un programme infrastructure qualité, hein, donc dans le solaire. Donc ces programmes visent l'électrification au réseau et l'usage productif utilisant le solaire. Donc on a aussi des plateformes énergie renouvelable. Il y a aussi le cluster de l'ANER, avec l'ANER, cluster énergie renouvelable. On a aussi un arrêté qui a été pris récemment, portant sur le cadre de concertation pour l'électrification au réseau. Il y a aussi une plateforme multipartite, initiative écosystème d'entreprises inclusives dans le secteur de l'énergie solaire, au Sénégal, avec l'initiative du PNUD. Donc les acteurs privés, ils interviennent dans l'électrification publique, comme des IPP solaires avec la Sénélec, comme concessionnaires avec l'ASER, ou dans l'autoconsommation pour les entreprises et les ménages et dans le cadre de l'usage productif. Maintenant, par rapport au défi du solaire dans le cadre de l'accès aux services énergétiques. Donc, au Sénégal, il y a une forte volonté de l'État du Sénégal à promouvoir l'énergie solaire dans le but de diversifier les sources d'énergie, de réduire la dépendance des énergies fossiles, de réduire le prix de l'électricité, mais aussi de réduire les effets néfastes au changement climatique. Donc, la CDN du Sénégal s'appuie fortement sur le solaire dans le cadre de l'atténuation. L'appel d'offres scaling solaire avec la Commission de régulation du secteur de l'énergie d'une puissance de 60 MW a permis d'avoir des coûts très compétitifs, donc 3,99 centimes d'euros, ce qui présage un bon avenir pour le solaire. Donc il y a beaucoup d'initiatives dans le secteur public avec une multitude d'opérateurs nationaux et internationaux. Je vous remercie. Je vous remercie.
Thank you for the presentation. And can we maybe we also would love to learn, what has been challenging for Senegal in terms of, implementing these, initiatives and policies thus far.
Bon, pour le défi, bon, c'est vrai que le premier défi est donc on a un défi pour le financement quand même des acteurs privés dans le cadre du solaire photovoltaïque. Parce que bon, au niveau de nos banques locales, donc, les privés ont des problèmes quand même pour avoir le financement. Donc, ce qui constitue un facteur bloquant. Bon, c'est vrai que il y a la volonté de l'État qui est là. Bon, on a aussi besoin d'un appui aussi en renforcement de capacité, capacité de tous les acteurs, aussi bien publics que aussi privés. Et ça. Donc il y a aussi un défi aussi par rapport aussi à l'infrastructure de qualité. Que là aussi, donc il y a pas mal d'équipements au Sénégal, donc il n'y a pas une réglementation des équipements. C'est vrai qu'il y a des normes qu'on a élaborées depuis longtemps, qu'on doit actualiser, mais il y a aussi le défi aussi de la réglementation aussi des équipements solaires photovoltaïques. Je vous remercie.
Thank you for the comment. And so in terms of inviting private partners and capacity buildings and all these efforts, I believe, FDB also has been supporting all these national government's initiatives. And so maybe Astrid could share what FDB has been doing and what all the development finance institutions, including FDB, is now trying to do, or what's the kind of new approach that we've been trying to come up with?
Okay, thank you. So as I mentioned before, we've given ourselves the very ambitious target to reach universal energy access by 2025. And doing this through renewable energy is a core focus of the strategy. We have given ourselves under the Climate Change Action Plan the target that actually we would like to reach 40% of all of our operations to be climate friendly. So either mitigation finance, which is where renewable energy falls, or adaptation finance. So as an institution, we are challenging ourselves to do more and better. We're on a good path. Last year we had 28% of climate operations, and actually all of the energy projects we supported last year were renewable energy projects. So solar is a very important part of this, and I should say, obviously, the investment needs to reach our universal energy access target for Africa are such that we cannot do this on our own, and no MDB can do this on their own. Hence, really, our attempt to become a neutral convener of all the partners we need at the table, both public and private, to achieve this objective. And the Desert to Power initiative is trying to do that to harness the potential of solar in the Sahel countries and the Sahara countries. So as a bank, to date, we have supported renewable energy in many ways. Of course, we invest in large-scale renewable energy generation capacity, including solar. The most famous one being the 350 megawatt Nur Ouazzazate concentrated solar power plant that we co-financed, and where we also brought concessional finance from the Clean Technology Fund to bear, which then allows to reduce the overall tariff. We've also financed private providers who bid under the Egypt feed-in tariff regime, for example, and we're working with a number of bidders in other IPP bidding processes that are currently going on. Obviously, we cannot only talk about generation when we talk about renewables, because the grid needs to be there and it needs to be stable. So one of the core parts of our business is that we continue to invest in upgrading of the transmission systems at country level, but also to really help countries interconnect. So we finance a number of regional transmission lines every year. One that was quite visible last year was the Niger, Benin and Burkina Faso interconnector, which is will enable those 4 countries to exchange power in a seamless manner. And thirdly, we are very committed to achieving the last mile energy access also through distributed and off-grid solutions, and obviously solar is left, right and center of that. We have approved a number of initiatives in this context. We have created an off-grid energy facility under the Facility for Energy Inclusion that is providing debt financing to solar home system providers, and is also trying to do this in local currency, as one of the challenges of these providers is that they receive the revenues in local currency, but are struggling to access local currency financing from commercial banks, as our colleague from Senegal also pointed out. We have also approved a standalone project in Ivory Coast to support a off-grid provider, the Zola company, and the objective here has been that through a guarantee, we are actually encouraging local banks or enabling local banks to lend to these propositions, which is new technology for them with a limited track record, so they need de-risking to do this for the first time. And then, of course, the idea is that once they learn about these proposals, they will become more familiar with it and continue financing over time without additional enhancement. And we have also, together with the European Union, set up a guarantee program to do similar structures as the ones I just mentioned in Côte d'Ivoire, and also to, over time, create a market for securitization for off-grid receivables, because that is a revenue stream that can serve as a security in these types of financings. But we're not only investing, we're also trying to help governments on the regulatory side. We have created an Africa Regulatory Index, which is kind of a snapshot of an assessment of the state of regulation in several African countries. And we're also very active on project preparation, because it takes a lot of effort to bring renewable energy projects of all sizes to a stage where they actually become bankable and investable. And one of the bottlenecks is that in the early stage, you need more high-risk capital, which is currently not available in the market, which is why the Desert to Power initiative is also looking at putting a project development facility into place. So this is what we have done today. We're looking at a number of new approaches in order to roll out the renewables even further. One new approach is a programmatic approach we have just approved for Zambia, the Zambia Renewable Energy Financing Framework, where we're partnering with KfW, who is putting a standard procurement process in place under the GET-FIT program. And so the bank will co-finance successful bidders under this GET-FIT program. And we have mobilized co-financing from the Green Climate Fund to do this. And we are also arranging additional local financing from local commercial banks as well as local pension funds. And the idea there is again to be the honest broker to maximize public and private finance for these renewable energy solutions and also bring in local currency financing. We are furthermore working on innovative technologies. We are currently hoping to support Eskom, the South African utility, with an investment in distributed battery storage solutions that will actually enable them to increase the stability of their transmission system and to be better prepared to receive the significant renewable energy that will be coming into the system following the recent round of IPPs that have been concluded or signed or are currently under construction. You will be aware that South Africa is really leading in the African continent regarding renewable energy IPP procurement and rounds. And maybe lastly, allow me to say that we are also in the process of closing the second fund window under the Facility for Energy Inclusion, which is dedicated to mini-grids and small-scale renewable energy IPPs across the continent, and again with an objective to provide scarce debt financing into the structure to help them come to fruition. And last but not least, I should say that we have a little bit of experience already with investing development equity, because under the Sustainable Energy Fund for Africa, that in general supports project preparation, there's also the Africa Renewable Energy Facility, which is a private equity fund that invests in small-scale renewable energy projects at early stage. So a little bit the prototype of what Desert to Power is trying to do in scaling up. So maybe let me stop there, and I'm sure we'll come back to more detailed questions on blended finance later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, Astrid has covered both on-grid, off-grid, local currency, and regulatory environment, and but then, you know, she also mentioned about this project preparation work that the bank has been doing, and I'd like to invite GCF insights on these issues, because this is a very high-risk environment. And what kind of role can GCF play, and what does the climate finance play a role in this kind of projects?
So on the Desert to Power specifically, as Magdalena, you've indicated, there are two funding windows to support its development across 11 countries. It's a very ambitious program. I think the unique feature potentially includes the project development facility, $30 million worth there. That is, as you say, a high risk and specialized area to develop bankable projects. And of course, it's potentially a tripartite partnership between the African Development Bank, GCF, and Africa 50, which of course has been set up in Casablanca with the African Development Bank support, specifically to support the development of projects. The projects, I think, in the African continent and more widely, take a long time to develop. They typically require equity capital, which is a scarce resource, and specialized skills, so it's very welcome not only that the African Development Bank are sponsoring that, but Africa 50, with the skill set that they bring to bear, will be part and parcel of that. We support that. As I indicated in my introduction, part of the mandate and role of the GCF is to provide risk capital, so that's in keeping with that mandate. Nevertheless, across those 11 countries, that is a major challenge in terms of coverage and the investment climate generally. They are not conducive typically, not exclusively, but typically to supporting private capital, therefore the support of essentially multilateral or similar public funding alongside and to promote the private development of these projects will be key. So we welcome that component on the provision of debt, project finance, if you like, to support those projects once developed. That's a role which we've, as Astrid has indicated, have already executed alongside AFDB in places like Zambia. We welcome that. I think the other element, of course, is the investment environment and the regulatory environment. You know, be that through feed-in tariffs, which are generally being phased out, but still have a role to play in terms of bringing certainty to the individual markets. Through an auction process, we've been extensively involved in Egypt and supporting the rollout of that, of solar in Egypt alongside another multilateral. So, these are these three elements which are there. So I think we can certainly bring our support to all of those roles.
Thank you. Going back to those countries, Mr. Nagata, since you've been looking into the NDCs of many of the African countries, especially in the sub-Saharan region, I was wondering if you could share more about your observations in terms of in terms of efforts to increase the solar portfolio within those countries, and what has been the key challenges. Could you explain more, and what efforts we should do?
Thank you, Jean, for the introduction. Obviously, as populations and economic situations are growing, power demands are also growing, and it would be a critical component of the sustainable development. However, looking at the area, there's a significant mismatch between the demand and supply. Since the power supply cannot meet up with the increase of the demand, it would be sort of hindering the proper growth of the region. And so it's critical to increase the supply side in order to meet up with the growing demands. And this, of course, needs to be done in a sustainable manner. And as already discussed here, the renewable energy, particularly solar and wind in this region, would play a critical role. And as also already indicated in the slides shown by Jean, there are complex sets of different challenges that countries are facing. As I said, we had a workshop in Burkina Faso earlier this year, and there were representatives from 5 key countries there. And also at the occasion, the number of challenges are identified, which included institutional and regulatory challenges, technological challenge, financial and capacity building, and lack of data or data quality, and these kind of things. And as already highlighted here, these challenges cannot be addressed in a simple manner, and there will be no magic to address all of them and solve at once. It requires on the ground, steady, step-by-step approach. But the good thing is that there are a lot of already initiatives and organizations which are offering cooperative hands to work with these countries. As I said in the introductory remark, we have as IRENA a lot of analytical work, as well as country-specific work such as Clean Energy Corridor or Renewable Readiness Assessment, which allows us to come up with policy recommendations to be addressed by countries, of course, in close consultations with partner countries. And we have a wide series of the partners here, and we have other partners such as NDC Partnership or GGGI, which can collect and coordinate all the efforts for targeted countries. So in close coordination, we will be able to provide necessary targeted supports to address these kinds of challenges that I mentioned. On the NDC side specifically, IRENA undertook analysis of the renewable energy components of NDCs. And there are a couple of interesting findings out of the NDC analysis. One, on the positive side, is that almost 80% of the countries which submitted the NDCs to the UN have some kinds of renewable energy targets. and many of them are quantified. And so that itself indicates that renewable energy is being recognized as the key component of addressing climate change. And looking at African countries, the percentage of countries having renewable targets would rather go up, and close to almost 100% African countries have renewable energy components in the NDCs. Having said that, there are things that need to be shared and addressed. One is that we found these renewable energy targets, although ambitious, there are still significant rooms for further enhancements. For example, when you compare the renewable targets as in the NDCs with the existing trend of renewable energy deployment in certain countries, actually the past trend is more than what NDC targets can achieve. So that means renewable energy targets in NDCs do not properly reflect the current trend of renewable energy deployment, or when we compare these targets with renewable energy targets in other national plans or other national strategies, there are mismatch. In many cases, NDC targets are less ambitious compared to the renewable energy targets in other national plans. So this leads us to a key message, key takeaway, that in order for a country to send a strong message to external stakeholders, including private investors, having a consistent target on renewable is critically important. In order to do that, the consultations, the close coordination among different ministries, particularly Ministry of Energy and Ministry of Environment or Climate Change, are critical. So we was in the report put in place a strong encouragement, strong message for the needs of these different stakeholders get together and come up with a consistent target of the renewable energy, and that would help the private sector to be motivated to invest more in the renewable energy projects. And lastly, not the least, it's agreed that it shared the recognition that finance is one of the key challenges, but we recognize that money is actually there. A lot of, including AFDB and the World Bank, there are a lot of people who have been offering money already. The issue is accessibility and capacity to access that money, and in that regard, it is our view, IRENA's view, that the government is actually have a quite different role from historical roles, in that rather than providing grants or loans directly to countries, it rather need to play a more supporting role by de-risking, for example, or providing structured finance rather than direct finance. So that's also one of the messages that we conveyed in our report. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, we've been talking about high-risk environment, but then you're kind of shedding more lights onto what we could actually do and the points where we could intervene, for example, like capacity building and working on the regulatory environment. And also, okay, then Mr. Seth, we've been, looking into this country situations, and could you, would you be able to share more of how the market situation is now in terms of the solar in African region?
Thank you. Most of the African countries are sun-rich countries. Hence, potential of solar application is tremendous. Different sources for power generation available apart from solar energy are hydropower, wind power, power through conventional fuel like diesel and coal, and in some cases geothermal and tidal power. But solar energy is the only power which is available to all the countries, that too free of cost. Countries like Kenya and Nigeria have good solar base and footprints. Other African countries also have solar installations. The solar applications which will benefit more in these countries will be decentralized solar systems, as they lack transmission systems. Projects of solar pumps, solar cold storage, solar mini grids, etc. will play an important role in improving the economic status of the country, as well as will support the country to reduce carbon emissions. There is a huge potential in irrigation for agriculture to support food security of countries, potential to change in the farming pattern to improve the quality and quantity of food products. Community irrigation will be cheaper comparatively, and also securing the optimization, utilization of water. This can be a business model, and this is working in Cabo Verde. Solarization of unelectrified villages will give access to each and every household without extending transmissions lines in decentralized manner. Energy storage, becoming more precise technology with good economic, will make the off-grid system work for 10 years without battery replacements. Through the ISTAR centers, which is the ISA program, Solar Technology Application and Resource Centers in African countries, capacity building program within to install and maintain the solar system, thereby becoming entrepreneurs. ISA was constituted for enhancing solar footprints in ISA member countries. Most of these countries lie in Africa region. As per the data available, Africa is dealing with the following problems so far as energy sector is concerned. No access to electricity to most of their population, lack of transmission system or efficient transmission system, lack of availability of power for irrigation, power availability at higher cost due to power generation through diesel, no major industries due to lack of sufficient power availability, non-availability of infrastructure of development and sustainability of solar project, and lack of capacity building, which all our panelists had said. ISA has launched 5 programs as of now to facilitate and assist ISA countries in developing solar roadmaps of such countries which are struggling with these issues. And the programs are scaling solar application for agriculture use, scaling affordable finance at scale, scaling solar mini grids, scaling solar rooftop programs, scaling e-mobility and storage. ISA has been working on understanding the need of solar projects and programs in each of the ISA countries, specifically African countries, in close association with national focal points of these countries who are a senior government official from the energy ministries. Accordingly, ISA has requested to all the ISA countries to submit their country demand for solar pumping system, solar mini grids, and solar rooftop systems till 31st of December of 2018. Till now, more than 15 countries have submitted their demands of solar pumps, out of which 10 countries, African countries with demand of more than 150,000 has been submitted. 6 other countries have submitted their demand for solar mini grids and solar rooftop, out of which 4 are African countries with cumulative capacity of more than 65 megawatt. The trend indicates that African countries may additionally submit demand of more than 150,000 numbers of solar pumps and more than 100 megawatt of projects of solar mini grids and solar rooftops. As of now, ISA is focusing on decentralized solar solutions with scaling up target to reduce the cost of the systems. ISA will shortly be issuing a price exploratory international competitive bid for 500,000 solar pumping systems, which will not be mandatory for countries to accept, but will have an option to accept. The bid will be for supply, installation, and operation and maintenance of solar water pumping system for 5 years with international specifications. ISA also mandate of capacity building of ISA countries through ISA Star Center to be developed in each ISA country. Presently, training of master trainers program on solar energy is undergoing in National Institute of Solar Energy in India, funded by Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, in which 3 batches of 71 engineers from 30 ISA countries, of which 15 from African countries have completed. Total 500 master trainers will be trained. Potential assessment is the ongoing process through prevailing policies, regulations, and ongoing solar programs within the countries. Most of the African countries do have separate solar policy or mission at their own, but almost all are inclined to achieve the national determined commitments. multilateral financial partners of ISA will play an important role in it. But more than the multilateral giving the loans and the credits, there are other models also available, like the RESCO model. If the private companies goes in the countries and sign the PPAs for 25 years, there is no need for any capital which has to be invested either by the country or they have to take a loan. There is an IMF guideline on the stressed countries. That is why most of the World Bank, we have partnered with all the financial institutions. ISA has been now a partner with 24 organizations, including all the multilaterals. And yes, my colleague from IRINA is right that they have money, but issue is the capacity building. Is they can repay back, the country has the repay back capacity, or is this 25 years the system will work? These are the models which we have to achieve. We are also working with European Investment Bank on the off-grid insurance, which my colleague from AFDB also said they are working with the EU Commission. And this is a pilot for the 4 countries, and we are coming out with the African countries also, so that the entrepreneurship and the local bank capacity also get built in the process. Thank you.
Thank you for the comment. You've mentioned many points, but then this productive use, especially in the agriculture, that also is an area where Digital Power is trying to intervene and tackle. So thank you for bringing that up. I would now like to open our discussions with our audience here. We'd like to receive questions from you. If you have any, the gentleman in the backside.
Thank you.
Could you introduce yourself first and then?
My name is Amr Khalifallah. I'm from Sudan. I'm a founder of a new initiative called the Sudanese Solar Energy Society. My question will be very relevant to the case in Sudan. Sudan is still very late in the development of renewable energies due to several factors that may have been mentioned here, the complex challenges. But we have additional 2 factors that I think limiting Sudan from following them. The first one is that we have hyperinflation hitting our economy for the last 10 years. That significantly increases the investment risk in renewable energies. So my question is, to what extent the climate finance can play a role in addressing this challenge. The second factor is that Sudan has been under, is mostly political, that Sudan has been under US sanctions for more than 20 years as well. And that blocked a lot of bilateral development cooperation in sectors like energy sector. So my question is also how global initiative can play a role in addressing this two challenges.
Let's get another question.
My name is Antoine. I'm from Senegal. I'm happy that we have our countryman who was presenting there. And that's give me to do a connection here, because when I look at your presentation, the first 2 slides were talking about the barrier in deploying renewable energy in Africa, that we all understand what are there. They might be institutional, they might be financial, they might be structural. And then you have a country profile, which is very attractive, the one of Senegal, where everything looks fine, working. But then the presenter came and say, I think the main barrier is financing. So my question is, are you trying to solve all these barriers once upon time, or are you trying to work on a country base? Because if you Senegal is in West Africa is way in advance in all of these policy in renewable energy. But then it's not going to help you if you just leave it at that state, if you don't bring the means to implement all of these good policies. Because the other country are going to say, why are we going to improve our policy if we know that at the end we're not going to be able to implement them? This is my first impression of the session.
Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Boniface Maniki. I'm from Kenya. My question goes to GCF. You said you are funding risk, and in the process of making these proposals for the funding, there is a risk that is likely to occur, that we do not prepare proposals that are development, yet we are all aspiring to develop. So where is the cut line between funding for development and funding for risk?
Okay, so why don't we try to get the views from our panelists. Well, the first question was about the case of the Sudan, which addressed the macroeconomic challenges in addition to the existing other challenges. Would any of the panelists would like to respond to that question?
I'm going to give it a go. So if you have hyperinflation and you have sanctions, it's a very challenging investment environment, no question about that. That's not to say that there's not support available, including on the private sector, for doing that. That's one of the roles which groups such as the Green Climate Fund provides. But in the end, you're looking for long-term funding to match the life cycle of the solar plant which you're financing, and that is a challenging environment. So undoubtedly, the investment environment in which any of these projects operates will be a constraining factor. I think in terms of Senegal, just in terms of that, you're right. It's one of the better environments, and there are many examples already I know which have been successful. Scaling solar, of course, being one such example, where the price is achieved when the financing packages, and the risk environment has been, to some extent dealt with. That's proven to be to added stability, and funding has supported the development of projects. And clearly, there's a long way to go. But I think it's a great case study, actually, in terms of how to go about it. And I'm sure there's a lot to be learned from other countries, including in the desert to power area. If I understood your question in respect of Kenya, in terms of development and risk, I'm not quite sure I fully understood the question. But if you take the GCF, we are a climate fund. Sustainable development is part of the assessment, if that was the purpose of your question. They often go hand in hand, inevitably, particularly in Africa, where accessible power is fundamental. But we look for that to be covered. I think a stable environment will inevitably demand good quality power, be it on or off grid. So in many instances, although we do demand, as part of our mandate, a climate rationale, we clearly recognise the importance of the development factor, and that is part and parcel of the assessment and what we do.
In terms of the second question, whether this desert power initiative is going to focus on countries like Senegal, we actually are trying to launch this project with a few anchor countries, and those anchor countries tend to be the ones who has less infrastructure for the solar and renewable energy in general, like countries like Niger or Mali and Burkina Faso. And actually, this initiative really is meant to start the preparatory work for those countries to build and develop and develop the solar projects that are investable and that can kind of attract private sector capital into it. And let us get more questions if there are more questions. from the floor. The gentleman in the middle.
Thank you. My name is Gareth Phillips from the African Development Bank. I have a more technical question. We often hear about using renewable energy, particularly solar energy, for cooking. And I wanted to ask, maybe there's some experts on this panel who can comment on the links between renewable energy and the demand for energy for cooking, because of the time of day that it comes, the amount of energy that's required, and you know, how do you factor cooking energy into a renewable energy system, and you know, what sort of solutions have you seen, or do you propose, for example, in context with the Desert to Power initiative? Thank you.
Is there any other question?
Hi, my name is Munir and I'm from Chad. At the end, when we finish, I would like to make a presentation on renewable resource energies. Is it possible? To precise, it will be in French.
Okay, we can do that presentation once we wrap this session.
Okay, thanks. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Joan Cunha, also from the Renewable Energy team of the African Development Bank. I like this initiative. I think for me still one of the big challenges remains on the distribution side. It's very good to talk about supply and supply trying to meet demand, but this is actually the missing link. We're talking about solar. Solar is variable input. Solar does not shine when people need the power the most, which is in the evenings. So we need to think about clever solutions to first sort of store and distribute and dispatch when the power is most needed, but also how to sort of increase the penetration of you know, variable input into the grids. And I think a lot of work remains to be done on transmission and distribution. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on that and how this initiative could unlock this binding constraint. Thank you.
And maybe one last question.
Hello, hi, my name is Andrew Wasiki. I am a journalist. Away from the technical stuff, I think I have a question for somebody from the AFDB. Is that Miss Astrid? Miss Astrid? The other day I was reading a publication online on what the AFDB has planned for Africa here at the summit. Can you just maybe, if there is a connection, tell me, because like you said, we have so many arid places across our continent, including my country, Kenya, northern Kenya. We have the largest wind power project in Africa. So can you just maybe tie, I'm trying to understand how maybe the AFDB's role when it comes to pushing for such initiatives to spread across Africa. There is a connection there, but I don't understand. If you can just tell me in simple terms, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. So about the first question on the clean cooking side and clean cooking solutions and how to embed this solution into Desert to Power, this topic actually is something we still have not given enough thought into in terms of this particular Desert to Power initiative. But I think you've raised a very good point in terms of maybe in the category of, like, you know, productive use of energy. And would any of the panelists like to comment on this topic?
No, like the solar pumps, what we are going to aggregate so that the cost should come down. We are going to aggregate the solar cookers also in some time, so that the cost should come down, and because of economy of scale, this advantage will take place. Yes, that is very valid, and we take that.
Yes, and And in terms of the second questions with regard to the distribution and transmission challenges, I am wondering if, Astrid, whether you would have any insights or responses based on the bank's existing work in those areas, transmission, distribution.
Yes, of course. I mean, I can talk about it in general terms. I can't talk about it in the context of desert to power, which then maybe you can explain in detail. But as I said before, the bank is working across the energy spectrum, and we are very much aware that particularly the integration of renewable energy does require stable grids and available grids, both for transmission but also distribution to the end customer. So we are actually, we are financing transmission lines, I would say. That's kind of the mainstream business of our sovereign energy business. We're also working with utilities to strengthen their distribution networks. There's quite a nice example in Kenya, actually, since you asked a question about Kenya, where we had an access, or still have an access project with the utility, where we strengthened the last mile energy connection within a radius of, I think it's 600 meters of all the substations that are out there and have still capacity, and that has really helped to connect a lot of households in a very short period of time. So, there are also still innovative solutions that can be done through the grid. It's not all off-grid solar, but I absolutely agree with Joao that as you continue to design this program, you really need to take local circumstances into account and know your market, because every market is different, both in terms of energy mix, but then also in terms of the stability and availability of the grid, the distribution capacity, and then of course at the end, the payment capacity of the end user as well, which is something we haven't spoken much about, but also comes into play and then requires tailored solutions. So it is quite a challenge to try to do this in a programmatic way across 11 countries, but as a bank we've never been shy to tackle challenges. And maybe if I can try at the same time to answer your question in very simple terms. So we really would like to see every African have access to electricity by 2025. This is not something the AFDB can do alone, because the investment needs are, close to 100 billion per year. According to some studies, this is not money we have, and this is not money that's available in the public sector only. So together, we need to try to bring all the partners to the table so that we can fill the financing gap. And we don't have any preference. We invest in all the parts of the energy chain, again, generation, transmission, distribution, but we also at the same time have to put the enabling environment into place, because finance is only one part of the solution, as some panelists have alluded to. We need to have government commitment, we need to have the right investment climate, which means the right regulatory policies, as our colleague from Senegal has explained, and we also as partners have to work in a very complementary way. So at the AFDB we hope that we can play the role of an honest broker and convener, so that everybody brings the best what they have to offer to the table to achieve universal energy access. I hope that is a little bit clear. Yeah, thank you.
Could you speak on the mic?
The FBD being in Abidjan for now. Then you have the ECOWAS Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency, which is doing a perfect job all over the 19 countries of that organization, which 3 of your pilot countries might be classified as ECOWAS country. I didn't sense here that you even have any contact with ECRE in terms of working in partnership, because they just launched with the World Bank a very similar project. So what I'm looking at here is, yes, we need more financing, but why are we going to repeat the same thing everywhere? Can't we try to work in like a partnership, and then a pick where you left, and then go further? Am I clear or what is what to say?
I actually don't know much about what the other project is about, so I can't respond to that question immediately. I mean, if there's any areas where we should collaborate, I think we definitely need to collaborate further.
Okay, we will send you ECRE.
Let me help my colleagues here. No, I think there's been good conversations with World Bank colleagues on this program. I know the program is still in a sort of a startup phase, so there's still not a whole lot to build upon. I know there's also been conversations with the ROGEP team and the Facility for Energy Inclusion, which we talked about earlier. Also because ROGEP is channeling financing through local financial institutions, financial intermediaries, right? And FAY is keen to structure deals that could leverage the financing from these institutions. So the partnership is there, is shaping up, but I agree there's still more that needs to be done and can be done in terms of really firming up a regional sort of cooperation program. This is a regional program. ROGEP is a regional program in pretty much the same countries. So that needs to be firmed up. The good news is that we've started. I think the not so good news is that we haven't concluded, but work is in progress. Thank you for raising that one. Thank you.
Thank you. And for our final remark, I'd like to invite each of the panelists to kind of suggest or share one key message or one key element for the successful rollout of this Desert to Power initiative. What do we need to do? What do we need to be very aware of? So Mr. Sambu, would you like to go first?
Merci. C'est vrai que, comme l'a dit M. Antoine du Sénégal, donc au niveau du Sénégal, comme aussi dans les autres pays, hein, il y a beaucoup de projets qui existent, aussi bien au niveau de l'État, portés par l'État, et aussi par le privé. Mais le problème, c'est que les projets existent, mais il n'y a pas quelque part... Donc le financement, c'est-à-dire, c'est ça, le financement, il y a donc les acteurs financiers, voilà. Donc il faut quelque part, par exemple par rapport à ce projet-là, quand même qu'un certain nombre de risques puissent être quand même pris, quand même même si quelque part les projets ne sont pas bien élaborés, donc que les acteurs soient accompagnés dans la conception, parce que c'est des projets qui sont viables, hein, qui sont viables économiquement. Je crois que aussi il faut quand même qu'il y ait quand même des risques quand même, pour quand même parfaire ces projets-ci. Ils ne sont pas parfaits, mais aussi quand même vraiment des risques quand même pour que ces projets-là soient réalisés. Hein. Il y a aussi quelqu'un de la BAD aussi qui a un peu parlé de la cuisson. Aussi, au niveau du Sénégal, hein, comme aussi au niveau de la CEDEAO, il y a aussi des projets dans ce cadre-là. Quand je prends le cas de la CEDEAO du Sénégal. Donc pour la cuisson, par exemple, on sait qu'une bonne partie de la cuisson utilise le bois. Le bois de feu qui a un impact sur la forêt. Donc il y a des projets de diffusion de foyers améliorés, mais aussi il y a des projets aussi de combustibles alternatifs. Il y a aussi le biogaz aussi, qui sont vraiment de projets qui sont là, qui existent. Donc qui attendent que des financements pour pouvoir solutionner ces problèmes. Je vous remercie.
Okay, you want me to go next? Yeah, I think I would just say two things. One again is know your market. These initiatives work well if really there has been a lot of understanding and an analysis on the local market, and what are the challenges, the opportunities, what are the bottlenecks, both on the investment climate side and then of course on the project side in terms of generation and transmission. And I think some good reflection on the right sequencing of efforts will certainly be key to the success of this initiative, as well as a due focus on project preparation, because that's the hardest part. And then once things are starting to come together, really working in partnership, again, actually this can start upstream already, to bring everybody's comparative advantage to the table, again, working with governments on their commitments and their targets, helping them understand understand what it takes to put the investment framework in place, the regulation, helping them also on competitive procurement. It's something we haven't spoken much about, but it has proven to result in least cost solutions to do transparent and competitive bidding and procurement. And then, of course, partner with everybody who's already out there in terms of financing and not try to crowd out existing initiatives.
Thank you very much. I also have two comments quickly. One is a bit of a promotion. As a Center of Excellence on Renewable Energy, IRENA has been undertaking a very wide range of analysis, and actually the issues mentioned here, we almost cover all of them, including distribution and end use sector, including the cooking part, and capacity building for bunkers, for example. And so we cover almost all the issues raised here. One of our reports. So I would encourage you to look at our websites, and I'm also happy to talk separately if any specific interest emerge. And also the second point is that as I said, we are now getting into a process to revise our NDC targets, and this will provide a very good opportunity for key players to get together and discuss the issues that we have on the table, and that process needs to address all the issues that are discussed here, and looking at particularly renewables, you would need to know your potentials, technical availability, institutional, legislative necessity, and finance, and the human and institutional capacities that would be needed. These things need to be discussed in a cooperative manner, a collaborative manner. And I'm certain that we already have a solution there. We have technology, we have a lot of knowledge in institutions helping institutionally, legally, and money is there, as I said. And the key point is being connected with appropriate people and appropriate institutions which have necessary expertise. So the key point is to work collectively so that all the necessary knowledge and know-hows can be collected and discussed, reviewed and discussed by necessary people, and this revision process would give the very good opportunity to undertake the initiative.
Thank you. We stand at a crucial phase in determining the energy future of the world, and by creating a platform for global cooperation on solar energy, ISA is set to embark on its mission to spearhead this energy revolution. Three things. With the proactive cooperation of all the countries and these other stakeholders, formulate projects and programs to promote solar applications, develop innovative financial mechanisms, and facilitate capacity building for solar technologies, research and development, and information exchange through a 24/7 knowledge portal. Recently, the ISA First Assembly concluded, and in this, Honorable Prime Minister of India given a mantra to the ISA. One world, one sun, one grid, which one of the colleagues also said, and if it can happen, connecting solar energy supply across borders, because somewhere in the world, it's always sun is there. And all the grid, if it is connected, the problem has been solved. But yes, my colleague out here in the AFDB said we have to look into it. There are issues involved, but yes, we are into that mission board and we want to achieve that also. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all the valuable comments and inputs. As Desert to Power Initiative, we currently have done very small number of public sector projects, and we're now trying to begin our private sector interventions. And so we're still in a learning stage, and we will, as we move on, we will reshaping our approaches and models, and so we will definitely incorporate all the feedbacks that we received from our panelists as well as from our audience today. And I would like to thank all of you to spending your precious time at COP24 to this session, and thank you all for your valuable inputs and comments. Oh, the kids' presentation. Okay. Yes, we should do that. Would you like to use this mic?